Thanks for staying with us right here on Sunrise as we continued this morning. Now, a poll ran by Travel Guide and Information Group has revealed that 11 European countries are ranked outside the top 20, while South Africa is the only African country on this elite list that is ranked the 5th most beautiful country in the world. Now, we're joined by SA Tourism CEO Sisa Ntshona as we celebrate Tourism Month and highlight some of the positive news about our country that you need to explore this Tourism Month. Good morning to you, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm good. So we're in full swing of Tourism Month. There was a bit of launch in the beginning of the month about I do tourism, we do tourism. So what is that theme all about?
Well, it's about inviting all of South Africa to become part of tourism, that each one of us has a role to play within the tourism space, that tourism, is for everyone, and that the better that tourism does, the better the country does in terms of the economy, job creation, and our economic prosperity.
Okay, just to remind us in terms of obviously the contribution of the tourism industry to the GDP is about what, 4.12 billion?
Yeah, well, look, I mean,
412 billion.
100%. I think last year basically is that we contributed 101 billion rands in terms of into the fiscus. We comprise something like 3% of the GDP. We obviously want to increase that quite aggressively. I think as much as last year was good for international arrivals, we're still less than 1% of the global market share. So we really want to ramp that up quite significantly. Important to note, although we have got a big focus on international tourism, we want to stimulate domestic tourism. We want South Africans to discover their own country. We want them to know those little hidden gems that no one knows about. And it's about people, it's about experiences, about food, it's about flavors as well.
So obviously that contributes to the GDP, but I'm sure it also contributes to the psyche of the country and South Africans just feeling passionate and being proud of the country. How are you going about doing that?
Well, great. I mean, it's all about patriotism, isn't it? In order for you to become a tourism ambassador, as in we do tourism, well, it presupposes that you actually know your country. And it's about giving South Africans the confidence to travel. It's about giving South Africans options as well, that it's not just the big nodes of Cape Town, Durban and Joburg, that's it, but they are 9 different provinces, and each province got its own unique kind of offerings. And how do we, again, start to package these in a way so that they become appealing? We're looking across the board, and whether it's sports tourism, rural tourism, cultural tourism, immersion, these are all the trends that we're picking up. We're also seeing that the traveler is getting younger and is getting a bit more smarter in terms of the choices where they go to. People want to travel and knowing that they're leaving the world in a better place they found them in, Internationally, one of the things they've told us is that it's great, you've got great features, but South Africa's secret weapon is its people. And how do we bring more of our people to the fore?
Okay, so obviously that presents us with an opportunity to create jobs, which is one of the challenges that we're faced with as a country, especially with a young population that's unemployed. And tourism sounds like something exciting that can attract young people. How are we faring in that space? Well,
in terms of job creation, definitely within there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tourism is labor intensive in itself. Whilst the world grapples with the 4th industrial revolution, robots taking over, tourism is a natural mitigator to that. But the other thing, also understand that tourism touches on so many sectors, indirectly as well. If you look at the latest GDP stats around agriculture, right?
And
we've grown significantly.
And the growth,
we can lay contribution to that because the more tourists we have, the more they consume, the more agriculture goes. So we're really inviting entrepreneurs. Don't only just look for a job. Look for what business can you operate in this environment. You can be anyone from a tour operator to a tour guide to establishments, not just about B&Bs as well. It's about what else can you put in for. And I suppose my challenge out there all the time is that we want South Africans to travel. If you are South Africans, you know our psyche. What are the things that you want to do and put in place to make sure that we start to explore our country as well?
So you spoke about how they say the gem that we have is our people. Obviously, it's about our people taking advantage of that and being part of contributing to what tourism can do. But how do we change the mindset that we start seeing ourselves like that we can actually contribute to creating something not just for ourselves, but for others to experience us?
Absolutely. I think the first one is part of the We Do Tourism campaign is crowding South Africa in. We want to include everyone, so that everyone sees themselves playing a role. Whether you work in a bank or even a post office, you all contribute to tourism. I think that's the first one. The second part is in about the more you explore, the more you know, the more you want to impart that knowledge. And we want to make sure that we catch at school level, kids level, how do we start to have more tours so they can also, inculcate the culture of travel, mobility within. Because here's the reality, I mean, hardly 30, 35 years ago, the majority of the population of this country needed passes just to move from one city to the next. So mobility is not something that's ingrained within us. And it's about how do you get over that to make sure, we tend to know our own spaces very well. I always make the joke around, we're only confident in our own township, but once you put someone else in another township, you can see they're kind of not really sure-footed there.
But the irony of it is that actually all those townships are set up alike geographically. What do you have, main entrance in Soweto, the main entrance in Mamelodi. It's like you have almost like
service station,
police station. It's like, because when I travel and I go to like small towns, I always think, okay, Lichtenburg looks like Middelburg. It's like I've been here before, but in another province kind of thing. Okay, so that's quite exciting. So how do we get South Africans to discover those gems for themselves and to remove, that mindset and make sure that when they say tourism is a pot of gold, that it is exciting for everybody as it is.
Look, I mean, there are realities that we have. We know that we're in a very tight economic environment, so there is always a fight that we need to have for share of wallet. There's finite disposable income, and we want South Africans to make the choice of travel. But it's also not just traveling with the purpose that when you decide to travel to rural areas, an example, for the weekend, that you actually contribute to job creation, because the financial footprint you leave behind acts as a catalyst in that space. And that's how we're just trying to make some of these linkages. But it's also taking pride in our country, so how do you instinctively, without any promise of reward, help someone who's lost, help someone to recommend and give, how do you smile, simple things. Like, when you offer a 10-hour flight, the first person you see, the immigration officer. We want them to be the welcome of this country as well. Still do a great job in terms of being an immigration officer, but essentially for them to become ambassadors as well.
Okay, and those who want to access opportunities within the tourism sector, how can you sort of what can you say to them?
Find information all the time. So each province has what we call a provincial tourism authority, Gauteng Tourism Authority. Get information around that one. For SA Tourism, go to our website. It's southafrica.net, www.southafrica.net. Get as much information as you can. Key things is that we want people to be part of this sector, to become entrepreneurs, and to really showcase this country, all of it, not just the major nodes, but all of this country in different ways. I think that's the key thing. It's a sector that is growing. We want to make sure that this growth includes a lot more people in it.
Okay, so what gem have you discovered? You're from the Eastern Cape, right? I'm sure you've been to other parts of the country. What gem have you discovered? Let's see if you...
Now you're making me like choose who's my favorite child,
no, I'm not
don't you? I think that's the main one.
If you're saying it's about discovering the little gems, what have you discovered in your recent travel?
In the smaller town? I'll answer you next time. I'll tell you why. Ask me after Tourism Month, and I will tell you. Right? I think there's a lot of stuff. I get intrigued all the time.